Good morning, well, I assume it's mostly good morning, but if any others, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar. My name is Malcolm Groves. I have a couple of co-conspirators here with me. First up, maybe we'll go in geographic order, perhaps. So geographically closest to me, we have Mr. Gordon Lee in, looks like sunny Taiwan this morning. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, thank you, Malcolm. I'm happy to be here to enjoy the webinar with you wonderful people. Hi, everyone.
Very good. And further away geographically is Mr. Ian Barker. And I have to say, Ian, so apart from welcome, I have to say your hotel room in Brazil looks remarkably like your apartment.
Yeah, you can blame the Brazilian visa system for that. Yeah, I went to the airport and they went, no flying for you, sir. Not because I'm on a naughty list, but because my visa wasn't ready. And these things happen. So, yes, I am actually still in Dallas. Hey ho. Oh, the good news is that means it's actually 2 hours earlier for me. So I'm not so late tonight.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what that would do to your time zones.
It's better off for me. So yeah, I still have time for a gin and tonic later.
Well, we're an informal bunch out here, so if you want to start early during
no. I'll have some kind of HR person coming and jumping on the net for it. This is water, by the way, everyone, just in case.
Yes, I probably should clarify. Mine's actually just tea. So.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a bit early in the
anyway,
day
it's
for
good
me.
to see everybody, and we've even got people saying hi already as well. So hello to Mark and all this. It's weird for me to be on the other end of it. Actually, I do get to be a guest on different people's shows, but I think it's the first time I've been to a guest to the Aussies and the rest of the APAC area actually. So there you go.
Very good. Well, it is a relief to see that you can see the messages. That's good.
Yeah. I don't think I can reply directly. That's probably best.
Yes. Yeah. We need to keep you under control. That's all right. So as much fun as it would be just to sit around and have a chat, which perhaps we should do some other time. What we're all here for, of course, is the RAD Studio 13. What's it called? What's coming, or sneak peek, or launch?
No, we're actually calling it the release video.
The release.
Now.
Okay.
Yeah, because as of earlier on today, US time. Sorry, everybody. I know it's annoying for the APAC region, but most of our offices are based in the US, so that's the way it is. It is actually RAD Studio 13 launched and available today. You can download it right now.
Cool. Cool, but don't rush off and do that, obviously.
No, God, no. Find out what's in it and then do it. And also, you get the advantage because all the Americans have done it now, so the servers will be much more relaxed than our life. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So what the plan is today, we'll run through the presentation and the demos and those sorts of things. If you're watching and you've got any questions as things come up, please add them to the chat window in YouTube. Some of them we'll try and reply to them during the presentation. Some of them we might save until the end, because after the demos and everything, we'll come back and we'll have a chat like this and talk through some of the maybe more common questions or that sort of thing. And Mark's in the chat showing that maybe he got up super early and he's already got 13 installed. There you go.
TV guys are in there as well. Saw them in Amsterdam a little while ago. Yeah, they get about a lot for Aussies.
So as I say, yes, we'll come back for a chat at the end, and then depending on where you're based, we'll get you out of here in time for lunch or whatever. Maybe not you, Ian. We're not going to keep you that long until lunch.
No,
so
it's right.
So with maybe no more mucking around, perhaps we should get this ball rolling. All right. Thank you, guys.
Hey everyone, Antonio Zapater here, pre-sales consultant from the Embarcadero team. and I'm joining you today from the sunny Spain, and I'm really thrilled to show you all the new features we're bringing to RAD Studio 13.
Hey everyone, I'm Nuno Castro, Product Manager at Embarcadero, and I'm pretty excited to be joining you guys here today to show you some of the new goodies we have on RAD Studio 13. See you in a second.
Hi, I'm Marco Cantu, RAD Studio Senior Product Manager, and I welcome you to this webinar introducing the fantastic new features of RAD Studio 13 Florence.
Hello everyone, Ian Barker, the Embarcadero Developer Advocate. I'm really pleased to say we've been working on RAD Studio 13 behind the scenes for a long time now. Lots and lots of things packed into it. It's a big release, and it's very good to be able to tell you about it today. Speak to you soon.
Hi, I'm Max Menschikoff. I'm a product manager for C++ Builder, and I'm joining you today in this webinar to show you what our team has come up with in the latest RAD Studio release.
Welcome again to this webinar focused on what's new in RAD Studio 13 Florence. As you can see from the agenda, we do have a rich number of new features in the product that we're going to cover in this webinar, from change to the Delphi language to a new C++ Builder compiler, from IDE improvements to a new set of AI components, and then of course improvements to our UI libraries and to the new web stencils technology we introduced in RAD Studio 12. Before we get into the detail of what's new, what is RAD Studio, in case you haven't been using it? RAD Studio is a software development IDE for building native applications for Windows, for both Delphi and C++, or for macOS, iOS, Android, and Linux from Delphi using a single code base. And it's focused on visual designers, embedded AI, integrated tool chains, comprehensive data access, component-based architecture, and really an accelerated development workflow. Let's start from the core foundation of RAD Studio, which is the programming languages and compilers that are part of the IDE. First, the Delphi compilers. Delphi, as you know, is an Object Pascal derivative language. It's extremely powerful and readable. It can generate native code for 9 different targets, and RAD Studio 13 includes significant extensions to the language, highlighting the fact that the company is committed to keeping the Delphi language modern and relevant. But let's start to look at the actual feature. The most important one is a new ternary operator that we are introducing in the language. We're using the if keyword to make it more readable and more Pascal-like compared to the question mark semicolon syntax used by other programming languages. The behavior and the logic is the same. You can have a condition in an expression, so the if keyword is reused as an operator, and you can use it in any sort of expression, as you can see here. Specific rules are in place for coherence of the data types of the two portions, the then and the else portion of the expression. Notice that you also need to be careful because other operators have higher priorities, so you might need to use extra parentheses when merging an if statement within a complex statement. But again, the important thing is that even if the first demo up there shows a case of an assignment written in a different way, this is not only for assignments. It can be used for any expression within replacing a parameter in a function call or in any other scenario where an expression is allowed in the language. This is the most important new feature of the Delphi language in 13, but it's not the only one. We have a name of interesting function, which lets you get a string representation of almost any identifier in your code. There are new push opt and pop opt compiler directives similar to C++ pragma option, which allow you to restore the set of compiler options at a given point in time and then, save the compiler options at a given point in time and then restore them later on. There is an explicit set parameter available in record class operators initialize and finalize, used for creating custom managed records, which simplifies the syntax because avoids you to having to explicitly indicate the output and var parameter of the two operations. We also have another syntax helper, which is new operators is not and not in. Again, it's not just a slightly different syntax, it's making the code more readable and introducing an operator that combines two different operators in one. There is a no return directive. You can mark a procedure as no return. And the specific advantage is that you will not get a warning that the function might not return a value if, for example, that procedure raises an exception. Introducing additional constraints for generics types. Interface unmanaged and non-null are the three new constraints. This helps simplifying some of the logic in terms of generic records and is also a foundation for future work that we want to do at the compiler level. Finally, we have an extended if opt directive. You can have conditional code depending on the status of a directive, and it was limited to the short version of the directives. Now it's expanded to all of the long directives. And now Ian is going to show you a short demo of some of these new Delphi language features. Ian?
Thanks, Marco. As we just mentioned, there are a few new things in the Delphi language with RAD Studio 13, but perhaps my favorite one is the ternary operator. I've got a little demo. I should point out that this demo actually relies on a third-party component, but don't worry, it's free, and you can get it from Get-It and install it. If you want to try out my demo code that I'm going to show you, then install this SynEdit. The only reason I'm using that is just so that it does a kind of cool demo. Go into here, I'm going to open my thing called a ternary test. Now, what is the ternary operator? Well, the ternary operator looks like an if statement, except you can use it in things like expressions. You might have seen it in other languages like C++, where it's a question mark and a colon. This we felt was a bit more Pascal-like, and that's how it works. There are quite a few rules about where you can use it, and we explain that in some blog posts and some other demos. But let's just run this demo just so that you can see, because it does make it quite clear how each thing works. The ternary operator uses a thing called lazy evaluation. What that means is, if I run it now, you'll see that it's only going to evaluate the argument that is selected by this conditional here. So I've got a conditional statement. So if something, then do this thing if it's true, and then do this thing if it's false. So it's a bit like a conditional statement. But if I was using the if-then function, both of these things would be evaluated. And that can have some unpleasant side effects. So just to check and make sure what we're talking about, I'm just going to select cat. So this time, only cat is evaluated as part of that expression. You can use it in functions. So if I use it in a function like this, you can see, is my screen width less than 2000? Then return 100. Otherwise, take the screen width and divide it by 200. Well, this is a 1920 by 1080 screen that I'm recording on, and so as you can see, it's divided that really down by 200. And you can then say if some other test, which is in the code, then put small, otherwise not small. And finally, those of you that know I'm a Star Trek fanatic, as you've seen from my background, there's a famous scene where he keeps being asked, how many lights can you see? So how many lights can you see, Captain? Well, I hate it when things are not pluralized properly. You know, 0 light, 1 lights, 2 lights, that kind of thing. I hate that. Well, with this function, you don't have to worry about that anymore. I can literally say, I can see, and if the lights are equal to 1, then don't put an S on the end. Don't make it a plural. Otherwise, add an S on the end. So it says 0 lights, 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights. Grammatically correct, just the way it should be.
So now let's talk a little bit about C++ Builder. So C++ Builder is a rapid application environment from Embarcadero that uses C++, that has CLang based compilers that were extended to integrate with Delphi, so it understands the VCL and FireMonkey frameworks and allow you to build native Windows applications or cross-platforms applications. And for this time around in RAD 13, we are very happy to let you know that our new modern Win64 compiler has been updated to CLang and LLVM20. What this means is that CLang 20 and RAD 13 introduce C++23 support. So right now on C++ Builder, you will have the option to choose between one of the three ISOs. That means you can choose between C++17, C++20, and C++23. Now, if you build a new application with the new Win64 compiler, the default will be C++23, but nothing is in your way to choose any of the other ISOs. Another thing to keep in mind is that although we support C++23, not all features will be available, as we will only surface the ones that are currently available in CLang. To know exactly which features you will be allowed to use, you can go to one of the links showed in the slides and see what is available for you today. This is a significant update for us, as for the first time in a long time we are on pair with CLang, and their latest version is actually 20. And this means that Embarcadero is fully invested on C++ Builder. Now, to showcase some of these new things, let's jump into the IDE and see some demos. Now that we are in the IDE, let's have a look at some of the features that I talked about. So first, if you go under Project, Options, under Building C++ Compiler, you can choose in this drop-down which ISO do you want to program with. The options available will be ISO 17, ISO 20, or ISO 23. For Win64-bit Modern, keep in mind that any newly created project will use 23 as default. But for any other toolchain, you'll still be using C++17 and you can't choose any of these ISOs, only for the new modern toolchain. Now let's hit save and run this simple VCL app that I created. So what this app does is, if you click any of these buttons, it will run some code of these newly ISOs, some code that was introduced in either C++20 or C++23, and output the result. Now, for the purpose of these demonstrations, I will just look into the expected demo, as is one of the features that I like the most. So let's click on it. So what is expected? So expected is a value or error return type that either holds true for success or false for error. In this case, what we are doing in here is we have a safe divide function, and this function returns an std expected int or an std expected string, so either a value int or an error std string, without any exceptions, without any magic. And as we have seen from the demonstration, on success we either get a truly call and then we call .value on it, or we get a failure and it's falsy and we get to read the error. In this first case, we handle the success error because 10 divided by 2, it's a possible operation, so we outputted the result that is 5, and the result variable was a truthy value, so we enter in the first condition. But on the second case, where we try to divide by 0, the result variable contained false, so we ended the unexpected result, and we are able to access the error function to get the error message and handle it gracefully. Now, other cool thing that we can do with expected is that actually we can use compositions on it like .transform. In this case, we are using .transform to multiply the result by 2, but we can do other things like .and then and .or else for chaining success and handling errors. Other cool thing about this is that if it has an error, it will propagate it automatically. One of the cool things, and the reason that I expected, is that we can use it to anticipate recoverable errors, like input validations, parsing situations, and it's much nicer than just throwing an exception. Now let's get back again into the slides and see what else we have for C++23. So back to the slides, and alongside the move to LLVM and CLang 20, there are a few practical wins that we got on this release too. So first is an improved address sanitizer runtime on Windows 11. So memory bugs like use after free and overflows are caught earlier and more reliable. Second is our C++ runtime DLLs are now versioned. So this prevents conflicts when multiple RAD Studio versions are installed on you ship apps. And third is we improve compatibility with legacy C++ Builder toolchains, so it's easier for you to migrate and bring older projects forwards. So we expect that now it will be easier to bring any projects forward, and it will be a smoother transition for you. This was it for now for C++ Builder, and now over to Marco.
Thanks, Nuno. After the compilers, the next area we want to cover is the product installation and what is new in the RStudio IDE. Regarding the installation, just a reminder, RStudio has a two-phase installation. There is an initial installer, and then there is a platform and feature selection that comes later on. This is what happens with both with the online installation, where only the initial installer is downloaded, or with the offline installation, where you can download the entire ISO image for all of the features, which are later installed on your machine. What's relevant in terms of change in the RStudio 13 installer is that the 64-bit IDE is not available as an initial preview option, but is being integrated fully into the core installation because it's now promoted to a full-blown feature. The other change is related with the Windows SDK installation. We used to ship a Windows SDK installer. Now it's a prerequisite. You should install it yourself. If you don't have it installed, if our installer doesn't find a Windows SDK, it's going to show this notice and provide you a link to open the web browser on the Microsoft SDK download page and actually install the Windows SDK before you continue with the RStudio installation. Now, there is one change that is technical, but is certainly important and it's going to have a lot of impact. We have unified all of the internal versions to number 37. There used to be a different version number for the compiler itself, for the Delphi compiler, for the package, runtime package extension, for the internal version numbers, for the folder where the RStudio IDE is installed. And these different versions were all different numbers, not aligned one to each other, causing some confusion. So they're now all aligned to version 37 or 370 for the compiler. Getting to the actual IDE, RStudio has a comprehensive and powerful IDE. It's also a highly customizable IDE, something we won't be able to cover much in this session. And as I already mentioned, RStudio graduates the 64-bit IDE for 64-bit target only as a full-blown feature. So the two IDEs remain available in parallel. You can use the 64-bit IDE when targeting Win64 and the other IDE when targeting Win64 or any other platform. We've added some of the features that were missing in the preview of the IDE we shipped in 12.3, namely code tooling for C++ with a new version of Visual Assist, support for COM, ActiveX, and type libraries, live templates, the Ctrl-J feature, and the surround menu. And we've also made a number of quality improvements for the IDE and for the debugger. We have removed one feature, the old UML modeling. This has also been removed from the 32-bit IDE. Now, Nuno is going to cover some of the code tooling in the RStudio IDE.
Thanks, Marco. So now a quick update on code tooling and starting with C++. So for 13, we have reworked the Visual Assist integration for C++ Builder, as the 64-bit IDE was a pain point, so we have rebuilt the bridge. Now you can expect more stability in both IDEs, and VA will attach now cleanly into the 64-bit IDE and staying stable while switching the projects in the project group, changing tool chains or flipping configurations. So you can expect it to now handle C++ Builder specific cases gracefully. Moving to Delphi, and a note before I continue to say what is available now on 13, Delphi LSP remains the direction and we are improving its architecture. However, because we know completion is critical, the classic Code Insight engine is available again as an optional completion provider, and you can enable it in the project options. Note that with this change, if you decide to enable the classic completion, Features like the structure pane, error insight, or editor navbar won't work while the classic engine is on. For the future, we don't plan to have those working with the classic engine because we still believe that LSP is the future of Delphi tooling. We also include a Delphi Upgrade Advisor wizard that we recommend that everyone runs. This will identify in code the changes and in the project configuration changes that can improve tremendously the compilation time and the code tooling experience. So we really advise everyone to run it and implement the changes that were shown in this wizard. In Getit, you can find some include scripts for use statements cleanup. In the meantime, while we are working on the native code tooling for Delphi, we are promoting the use of MMS Explorer. This was done by one of our MVPs, Rabe, and it's available on Getit. You can see the details of it in the websites showed in the slides, and it will work on the 32-bit and 64-bit IDE. This package will offer code navigation, refactorings, formatting, a lot of coding helpers, and much more. So definitely check that out and install it, as it will be very nice add-on to your daily development. Now some updates on debugger quality. So first, we have moved our LLDB-based debugger to LLDB20, matching the CLang 20 toolchain. And what this does is it brings a smoother 64-bit debugging experience and better performance. On top of that, we have done some small quality fixes, like for example, in the IDE options, you can now enable the code highlight in the debug windows. Besides that, we now have the correct handling of argv and argc with spaces. We have proper Unicode via output debug string, and we have actual display of white chars. Now a little bit more focused on the Delphi side of things, we have made pointer addresses look more like Delphi style. Scoped enums and sets show correctly now. We have better symbol and name resolution. We have broader Unicode identifier support and a practical win. On the touch to process dialog, now we have an extra columns, making it faster to pick up the right process. And now over to Marco again.
Thanks, Nuno. The other notable change in the RStudio IDE is a set of new search features that we have added in a number of panes, specifically in the project manager, in the structure view, and in the message pane and events log. For each of these windows, you can type to filter what is visible, the lines that are visible on the screen, and also there is configuration in terms of the matches, if you can make them case sensitive or words only, or even use regular expressions. For the message log, on top of it, we are adding some highlighting options that are now available by default, and the ability to group hints and warnings by source code file rather than having individual lines. This is handy when you have a large number of hints and warnings in your large projects. Let me actually show you these features in practice. This is a demo project in the RStudio 13 IDE, and as you can see, I can actually filter items in the project list. Of course, because this has a very short list, it's quite useless, but that's how it works. But if you look in terms of searching in the structure view, that is more interesting. I can search for paste, and I have paste items, paste operations, and so forth. Everything that has that word into the symbol. Now, the other thing I want to show is that when we are building this application, which has a few hints, the hints are grouped into a single entry as sub-items of this entry. This feature is enabled with a new option, group hints and warnings by file name, in the IDE options. And similarly, there's also the ability to enable or disable highlighting in the build log. There are also a number of quality improvements in the RStudio IDE, from improvement to Smart Code Insight, our integrated AI tooling for developers. There is, for example, a new test connection, which you can use to make sure your configuration with OpenAI, Gemini, or one of the other providers is properly working. And also some improvements in the way we process the responses to some of the prompts and some of the automatic prompts associated with the different menu items in the editor. Also, we have enabled options to use the editor background color for tabs and similarly activating the IDE themes for the structure highlight colors. We have introduced an option to copy error message from the structure pane where the error insight appears. And also whenever there is an exception in the IDE, the stack trace, rather than being hidden with like an extra options button, is now directly visible in the main dialog box. Last thing I want to mention briefly, because it's not for everyone, but it's a very important feature. We keep expanding our Tools API, which is an API that allows customers to add features within the RAD Studio IDE with official interfaces. New Tools API extensions in 13 include some welcome page refresh mechanisms, and then notifications when the editor cursor moves or when the user types in the editor. Now, another change that's part of our tooling integrated with the IDE is about the resource compiler. We are introducing a new open source resource compiler. It's called Resinator. This is the default in the build system. It's integrated and ships with the product. You can, of course, decide you want to pick a different resource compiler, including the resource compiler that comes from the Windows SDK. And so there is an option in terms of resource compiler to use, which offers you the ability to pick one of the available resource compilers. Now, another big change in the product is in terms of Getit, which is RAD Studio Package Manager. For the first time, we are offering versioning support. That means that rather than having one version of the package, the most recent version of the package available, you can also pick an older previous version in case your software was built with that version, that specific version of the library, and you want to stick with that version of the library until you have time to upgrade it and upgrade the application that interfaces with that library. It is a very relevant feature. Us and third-party vendors will be able to add multiple versions of the same package in Getit. And again, you'll be able to pick the version you want. You'll be able to install the latest, which is the default, to update from an older version to a newer version, but also eventually to downgrade from a newer version to an older version available in the package manager. As of today, because this is a new system in 13, there are not many versions available for the packages, but of course we plan expanding and using this system for the future, making available a number of versions of packages as new releases happen. Now, there are other changes in the Getit user interface. A very important one is the ability, once you have installed a package, to open the installation folder for that specific package, which can be a bit hidden from view. The other thing is that rather than having multiple buttons, we have coalesced everything into a single button that will show the most common or most obvious operation, which is generally either update or uninstall, if something is installed, or install if the package is not installed. But then again, you'll be able to use the drop-down to pick a version or to pick other operations. Speaking about AI, on top of the enhancements made to the Smart Code Insight, we are also launching a new website called RAD AI Companion. This is a chatbot that's been specifically trained on RAD Studio documentation, DocWiki, and books and other content. You can query it to ask anything about our IDE, our tools, our language, our libraries, and it's going to return information with links to the relevant DocWiki pages. And also you can ask it to generate application source code based on code it has learned from. This is the actual user interface. It's a very simple example of a request that was asked in terms of what's the most important class in the VCL library. You can argue about the answer, but the important thing is there. And again, it's there with links to the associated DocWiki pages. So it's there, it's available, it's open for every and each of our customers. There is another brand new feature we're introducing in this release of RAD Studio, which is a new foundation for the product, AI Component Pack. The core idea is to provide a foundation for you to build onto, but also for our third-party vendors and community to expand and extend in different directions, as you'll see. It's a set of core components, and we want this to become a foundation, and for this reason, it's available in Gedit for all SKUs and versions of the product. Now, what is the idea? As I was mentioning, it's meant to be a building block and a foundation for the future. There is an AI connection component with a role that can be compared to a database connection. The concept is that it's a single connection component, and then it uses drivers to configure the connection for different solutions. And what comes out of the box is support for OpenAI, Claude, Gemini, and Ollama. Because these APIs are used also by other vendors, in reality, the availability is for a much larger number of AI engines. There is a wizard to configure the connection. Again, there are drivers that you can have specific parameters for, not too differently from a driver integrated in a FireDuck connection. Outside of the connection component, there are also request components that you can use to access different data types, and you can create your own prompts and associate with the different components depending on the type of the result information. The goal, of course, is to make this a feature you can use when building new AI-powered application, but also because we know a lot of you have a large investment in existing application, to extend existing application built with either VCL or FireMonkey by adding AI capabilities. If you want to have a look graphically at how the architecture works, as I was mentioning, a single AI connection component with drivers that connect via REST APIs with some of the most important AI vendors out there. A single component, regardless of the backend, a set of drivers to map to the engine. Of course, one of the goals is to make this an open architecture, as I mentioned, so new drivers can be added by us in the future or by any third party. So once you have the connection, you can use a number of request components that can be used to request something that result in a textual information in a string. You request images, will return one or more images, or you can extract JSON structured data, in which case you might want to bind this with data in memory and with a UI. The goal of these request components is to make them visual, makes them easy to integrate with an existing application, make it easy to use them as a backend for your UI, and then use the regular UI controls you're used to for text, image, display, and so forth. In this webinar, we don't want to delve into the details of the Smart AI component spec and show demos. We'll probably do another webinar soon and focus on it and the architecture and the underlying operations. But what I want to show is a couple of images, design time, showing how things can be integrated, and you can even use the live binding designer to connect input and output of this new set of components, and then showing outside of text and chat demos how you can easily ask for an image and then display the result in a image control, or, which I found quite interesting, have a prompt that returns a JSON data structure and then map it to database structure and display it like any data table on screen. Now that we've covered the most relevant new features of RStudio 13 Florence, let's go over through a lot of other extensions, changes, and improvements we've done throughout our platforms and our libraries. RStudio targets multiple platforms, primarily with Delphi, and we maintain low-level APIs and SDK tools integration with all of them. As you'll see in a second, RStudio 13 has a lot of improvements in the platform integration for the different platforms that we support. Before we get to that, let's recap where we are, which platform we target. We target Windows, of course, Windows 11 and 10, Windows Server 2025 and 22, and of course, we target both 32-bit and 64-bit version of those platforms, although the IDE requires 64-bit version of Windows to run. For Delphi, we also target iOS 18, macOS 14 and 15, Android 14 to 16, and the recent versions of Ubuntu and Red Hat Linux Enterprise, and also the Windows Linux subsystem. We are making change throughout some of these APIs. For Android, we are still targeting API level 35 that was already available in 12.3 and which is the current version required by the Play Store. But we have updated the Java 2 OP engine, the tool to translate headers from Java to Object Pascal, moving to a different internal engine provided by the SDK. We have updated a lot of the other tools used for building and deploying application on a device. I'm not going to read through the entire list of platform tools that we have updated to a newer version, leveraging new features that these new versions bring along. And the thing I want to mention is that the other requirement from Google Play Store is the 64 kilobyte page size requirement. This is going to be enforced later this year. It was already supported in RStudio 12.3. Now, in terms of iOS, we have added few dozens of missing functions in different kits in the core. So there is really a new roundup of APIs that are being, in some cases, corrected, but in most cases added to the core APIs that we provide, translated to Object Pascal and ready to use. For the Windows platform, we have updated a lot of the Windows API interfaces. We've also done a refresh of the entire WinRT APIs available in the Windows app SDK. We have refreshed also the classic WinAPI MD projection and updated the WebView 2 control interfaces and the TH browser component that wraps the WebView 2 control, bringing you the ability to use a modern browser integrated into your VCL and FireMonkey applications. Now, in terms of runtime library, there are a lot of small changes, too many to list in a slide. It's, of course, a foundation for all other libraries, and we keep expanding and improving it, mostly in terms of quality and performance improvements. We have done a number of changes in the JSON processing, allowing you to ignore fields and properties, reworking the JSON number structure, and supporting unsigned 64-bit integers. There are really, as I was mentioning, dozens of small improvements in a lot of different areas, from registry, threading, and RTTI, and really, this is just a small list of what was done in the release, and a full list of improvements from customer requests is actually available on the doc wiki site. For web client libraries, we have added support for HTTP 3 in the HTTP client library. There is a new asynchronous version for SOAP request execution. Now, in terms of database support, we have also added support for unsigned big integers in a number of internal data structures. There's a new field type specifically for large unsigned integer, and of course, support for the database that have unsigned big integer support like Oracle and MySQL, and of course, also our in-memory FDMEM table. There's one feature that we added that I want to mention, although it's relatively minor, because it's part of a feature that many people might not be aware of, which is the ability of dragging fields to a form from the fields editor. This is being extended, allowing you, but particularly third-party vendors, to do a custom mapping and associate a different UI control with the given field type. Because this feature is not that common, I wanted to show you how it works. So I'm creating a new VCL application from scratch. I'm dragging over database table with the connection, go to the fields editor, add all fields. And now what I can do is I can drag the fields to the UI, and I'm getting a label and an edit associated with the specific data source and the specific field. And so I can go back here, grab a bunch more. It also offers multiple selection, and I can really quickly build a UI. And now what can happen is that you or a third-party vendor can map the field type to a specific data-aware control you want to use in your user interface. Now, there are a few more features like the ability to determine how text is trimmed in a DB text, and a way to navigate from data source to data set. Now, FireDuck is the primary data access layer available in RAD and we are continuing to offer extensions and offer support for new features in various databases and their drivers. We, in particular, updated the Oracle driver, adding support for open authentication. We've extended the support for backups with parallel backups for Firebird, and improved support for array types in PostgreSQL. There are other things we've done in FireDuck, specifically for the mem table. It allows loading standard JSON, not only JSON exported by the FDMEM table itself. It supports the ability of paging the content. For example, when you want to return the data to a web page, when it's filtered, so you can track how many records are active compared to how many records are in the table, and how many are skipped because of the active filter. Now, the other thing I want to mention, talking about databases, that Interface 15 is coming, the new version of Embarcadero DBMS. And while we are still bundling the older versions, the license of RAD Studio 13 includes already the license for the developer edition of the coming Interface 15. Now, the next area I want to cover, and it's not so late in this webinar because it's not important, actually it is extremely important for us, is to go over change and new features for our two user interface libraries, VCL and FireMonkey. Starting with VCL, which is currently the best and most comprehensive UI components library in the industry for building Windows desktop applications, and a library we continue to expand and invest on. We are adding a couple of long-awaited features to the VCL. To be more precise, we are adding extensions to existing features that customers asked since those features were introduced. So the first is support for styles in the title bar. The title bar allows you to create modern UIs where the menus and buttons and other elements merge into the title for the form. I mean, I'm sure if you're using Windows, you have seen a lot of applications that offer that style. We have had a title bar component for some time, but it was not possible for the title bar component and the components on the title bar to use VCL styling, to use dark color, to use all of the other UI elements that you can see here in action in this animation. Not only this, but you can fully customize the style colors for all of the various elements, the close and open button, the caption, the components dragged there, the icon, and so forth. So each of the elements that you can place in the title bar, you can also customize the foreground and background color. Not only, but we've improved the way a lot of the components that you can use in the title bar. We've added a show hint property for the caption button items you can put there. Another long-awaited scrolling feature is the ability to scroll content in an action menu bar when the action menu bar does not fit into the screen space, the screen height. It's very important because this is a common component that we encourage using based on VCL action architecture, which is a very powerful architecture for separating the UI with the logic behind the UI. Adding this capability really lets you target even computers with small screen estate without having to trim or cut or change the layout of your menus. It works for some menus, it works for pop-up menus, it works in a number of different scenarios. As you can see in this application, if you have a menu that exceeds the height of the screen, you get the scrolling items. Same for some of the sub items if they are too big, and same for a pop-up menu associated with the right click of an item. Everything is working very smoothly. It works with the styles, and it works, of course, with standard Windows UI. Alongside with this change, we've also refined a component introduced in RAD 12, which is called Form Stubs Bar. It's a component you can use to improve and redesign your MDI application, also for building application with a tab-based UI. As you can see here, we made things more flexible. You can merge your Form Stubs bar in the title bar, and you can have more flexibility in terms of coloring and the layout and different extensions that we made to this very nice component that lets you build modern applications or migrate old looking MDI application to a modern look and feel. Now there's way more. We have started integrating UI automation interfaces in the core VCL library, the wing control level. This is a foundation step that will need to be followed up by specific implementation for higher level UI controls that we'll be working on in future releases. But the foundation is there for you to start using for both accessibility support and to help building automatic UI testing. There are a lot of other improvements in the VCL library, from the control list component to the toggle switch to the Edge browser already mentioned, the style manager, month calendar, and new events for T-Splitter. I could continue for probably 10 minutes going through each and every small change and improvements we've done, and a lot of these are actually done because we had specific customers with requests and specific use cases that make sense, and we wanted to be able to let you easily implement. Let's switch to FireMonkey, which is RAD multi-device library, which allows you to create a single application with a single UI, single source code, and target 5 different operating systems from mobile to desktop. The most important things in the new FireMonkey is support for fast animations, and this is obtained with a new service called Display Link service. Rather than having an abstract timer-based animation flow, now it uses the platform capabilities for Android and iOS in particular to make sure that the animation adapts to the frame rate and to the available frame rate depending on the CPU load and of the animation itself or something else going on in your application. So rather than having stuttering animations because the application cannot keep up with the need to update the content, you can have a smooth, fast animation if the CPU allows it, or slower animation but still very smooth over time. That's not the only thing, although it's very relevant. We've introduced a new component called Mask Edit, which, not surprisingly, is very similar to the VCL style input mask edit. You can provide an input mask that's going to determine what you can type, sequence of letters and numbers, hyphens, other symbols, and so forth, as you type it. So char by char, pressed on the keyboard or introduced in a virtual keyboard on your device. We have enhanced the presented scrollbox component, which is used a lot for scrolling animations, the way the content bounces at the top and the bottom, and the interaction with touch. We have enhanced spell checking, added an incredible new amount of alignment options. It's really going out of control a bit. There is a new T application events component, again similar to the VCL application events components. It's a nice central place where you can handle things like a form has been created or something happened at the application level without having to write low-level source code. Just drop a component, handle one or few of the event handlers, and you can easily implement an application-wide feature for your mobile or desktop app written in FireMonkey. We even expanded auto-completion for T-Combo Edit, changed some of the bitmap copying operations by leveraging the GPU. The other thing we've done is we have not only surfaced again FMX Linux, but we've improved the integration, make it smoother, integrated the UI of the IDE in a way that you can target Linux at design time, and everything works much more similarly to how it works on other platforms. It's still a download available in Get It, and it's still only for enterprise customers, but it's a very, very powerful way to target Linux desktop alongside with Windows, macOS, Android, and iOS in FireMonkey. FireMonkey has also been expanded to use the latest version of Skia for Delphi for a number of different drivers and operating system targets. Skia if you haven't noticed, it was introduced in 12, and it allows for very fast and higher end graphic capability and UI features. Skia for Delphi is embedded as a foundation for the FireMonkey drivers for different platforms, but there are also, in addition, specific components you can use tied to the Skia UI and logic, both for VCL and FireMonkey. And, well, we've updated the web browser component for Windows, again, similarly to what we've done for other platforms with the new WebView 2 control integration. We have moved to a newer version of the emoji symbol library. We have added new event handlers in a number of components, allow the ability to reverse the logic of the track bar, customizing the menu item height, and, which is extremely important, it looks like a small footnote at the end of the slide, but it is fairly fundamental, the support we're adding for full screen support on iOS and for edge-to-edge support for Android devices. These are really, really extremely relevant features that we're adding to FireMonkey in RADStudio 13. In the last portion of this webinar, we want to cover another area that has seen a lot of improvements in this release and in recent release. This is the web technologies that you can use for building not only web services, which is our RAD server technology, but also for building web application by combining the Web Broker Foundation and web stencils. Web Broker is the framework for building web server extensions for IIS Apache and now also Nginx, or creating standalone web servers. Web Broker is a foundation also for RAD server, DataSnap, and a lot of third-party libraries that exist in the Delphi and C+ Builder ecosystem. 13 introduces the largest upgrade to Web Broker since Delphi 6. We are introducing integrated sessions. There's more in the coming slides, but it's really a big feature to have as a foundation in the core library. We have introduced fast CGI support that opens up the ability to use Nginx, but also allows a different integration with Apache without loading the library in the same memory space of the web server. Of course, FastCGI is also added to the Web Broker wizard that helps you create Web Broker application in the first place. We have introduced support for Apache config configuration, so you can have a number of information in the Apache config files that are loaded directly into records in the Delphi application. We have expanded logging by introducing an integrated logging capability at the Web Broker level in the T Web Application class. The mapping is automatic, not to like custom files, but whenever available to standard log files for Apache and IIS, while of course for CGI, we are using a custom log file name. As I was mentioning, the big new feature is sessions management. There is a new T-Web Session Manager component that you can drop in a web data module. This is a list of T-Web Session objects. By default, the mechanism uses session cookie, temporary session cookies, but there are other options available to track sessions. There is a session object that is kept around in memory in web requests. There is an authentication method and an authentication username as part of the web request. There are also two ready-to-use authentication mechanisms for logging to help building logging. Of course, HTTP direct basic authentication or HTML form-based authentication mechanism. This is something you'll need to create the HTML for, but the logic and the core mechanism is available and ready to use. The Web Session Manager, as I will mention, is a non-visual component you can use with a number of configurations, and then whenever you get a request from a browser, the web session object is going to include information like session data vars that are per session and not global, user information, the time the session was created, the URL visited, the IP from the customer, and so forth. There is also a web authorizer logic, because once you have a session and a user, you can determine which permissions the user has in terms of access to resources of your web application. Now, on top of Web Broker, what we have implemented, starting with RADStudio 12.2, is a template engine called Web Stencils. It's a server-side template engine for building very efficient, fast performance, data-driven website, and it's available as an add-on to Web Broker, DataSnap, or RAD Server. WebStencil is getting a major upgrade in 13 with the session support of web broker session logic, but also a new statement and some more information. The support for session data, of course, comes with the support for sessions. There is also an easy way to handle temporary variable without having to create a class and expose a class property. There is, as mentioned, a new switch statement, which can have multiple cases and a default value. There is direct access to the set properties, for example, the list of fields, the record numbers, and so forth, but also the ability to disallow access to these dataset properties if you are really, really worried in terms of security, because someone might have scripts that access information you don't want to expose to those scripts, although consider that all of these scripts run on the server and it's 100% server-side configuration. There is a new support for merging nested headers, and we've added a number of additional information in the page keyword. As I was mentioning, WebStencils and sessions are meant to be used together. So there's new access to session data via an add session new keyword for WebStencils. And then, of course, the ability to check if the user is in a specific role, so has specific permission. These can all be managed from the scripts. So WebStencils is really much more powerful than it already was in 12.2, and even easier to use because there are a lot of additional building blocks that are ready for you, plus the ability to integrate it with engines and support logging and more server-side features. But the real power is in seeing WebStencils in action in RAD 13, and for that I'll pass the microphone to Antonio.
Thanks, Marco. Hey everyone. So this is probably the most exciting web update we've had in Web Broker since Delphi 6. And honestly, it's mainly because of these incredible WebStencils enhancements that really take this to what I would almost call a 2.0 version. Because I don't have much time, I'm going to show you my absolute favorite 3 things that are going to be available on RAD Studio 13. First, let's talk about the new session management. Right now, I'm an anonymous user, as you can see in this session page, and I don't have access to some areas of the site either. But this demo comes with 2 users, demo and admin. Let's see what happens when I log in as demo. Now I've got a full session with user data, roles, and custom info if I need to, all handled by the new T-Web Session Manager component. As you can see now, I can access the task page because the demo user has the right roles, but watch what happens if I try to access the customers section. We see this custom 403 page, so the authorization happens at the page level using the new T-Web Authorizer component that we will see in a second. Now let's log in as admin to access customers. And here's our customers table with pagination and search that, by the way, all this has been integrated with FireDAC. But now it's where it gets very interesting. Let's edit this customer. This form we see is completely auto-generated from FireDAC metadata. Field types, lengths, display labels, required fields, you name it. And of course, the demo is fully functional and offers the whole CRUD experience. So I could edit, create, and delete customers, no problem. But here's the real magic. Let's open the web module where this customer query is configured. And by the way, this is 100% the standard FireDAC. Do you see this ID field that is set to not visible? Okay, let's change it to true and now refresh the project. The field just appeared and I didn't touch a line of HTML. Oh, and do you see this country drop down here? It's a lookup dataset that is linked to the country field and is automatically rendered. So literally your database writes your website for you now. This changes everything for large form handling, which has always been an absolute pain to deal with on the front end. Let's see now the session components, which are extremely simple. Here we have the session manager, form authenticator for login and logout, and web authorizer to define permission zones. And that's it. With these three components, we handle all the security of our website with almost zero code. Here we can see the web stencils template rendering the whole customer form we just saw, looping through the query fields. And this dynamic input template detects FADAC field types and render the required HTML using the new handy switch operator. And the coolest part is that this template can be reused for any query because of the template is fully abstracted from the parent query. So that was session management, automatic form generation, and smart templates, available for both Delphi and C++ Builder. This allows web developers with no Delphi or C++ knowledge to work with RAD Studio teams on the same project. And it's extremely powerful, not only for new projects, but for expanding legacy systems as well. Oh, and by the way, this whole demo we just saw will be available in the upcoming days, so stay tuned for our blog. Over to you, Marco.
Thanks, Antonio. Last thing I want to mention is RAD Server, which is Embarcadero middle tier solution for publishing REST APIs for client applications. It's a ready-to-use system with a lot of built-in features, much more than what WebBroker provides. You extend it by creating packages that are mapped to specific URLs. RAD Server is getting continuous updates and improvements, and it's available in the Enterprise and Architect RAD Studio SKUs for both Delphi and C++. RAD Server enhancements account from a number of things: improvements in the way we manage the Swagger-based API documentation, which is automatic documentation system based on the methods you are exposing to the internet as REST web services. We've expanded the support for multi-tenancy. That's the ability to use the same engine for multiple separated customers with isolated data in databases. And also introduced a way to do API versioning, so you can keep an existing URL pointing to a specific API, but add a new version of the same URL, of the same endpoints, and you can version it. So depending on the URL with the version number, you can target one specific version, or you can just automatically move for the most recent version for that URL. That's important because when you're introducing a new API and extend it and expand it, you might end up with incompatibilities, and you want your older clients to still target the new version of the server. We are almost done, but there is something we need to absolutely cover at the end of this webinar, which is what about quality? You have spent all of this time creating features, but I want to make sure that we are also fixing the reports and the complaints I've had in the past. And we are doing it alongside with the new feature requests. So we have implemented over 100 customer feature requests on our customer portals, but we've fixed over 300 issues that customers have been reported over the last few months, or at times even older issues that have been pending for longer. Overall, we are addressing over 700 customer reports, whether we are fixing them or we have deemed them not relevant or just not real issues and provided information on how to work around the perceived problem. These are between the old portal, qualitymbarcadero.com, and the new Jira Atlassian hosted portal on qp.embarcadero.com.
Well, there you go.
And we're back. We're back.
Yeah. Well, that was fun. That's I've seen that video of it today, as you can imagine.
It was actually
Yeah.
cool because I mean, there were a few things in there I wasn't aware of, like the web stencil stuff. That is pretty impressive.
I have to take a moment to talk about web stencils because it's one of those things that you know, I've been a Delphi guy since Delphi 1, and if those of you that know where the Easter egg is in RAD Studio, and if you don't know, Google it and you'll find out. But if you look for the Easter egg in RAD Studio, and you know where it is. This year is a homage to Delphi because it's 30 years of Delphi, literally this year. And in there, because I know what these things are, there is an image of a advert for Delphi, and that was the thing that made me buy Delphi the very day it was released. I bought it the day it was released. Marco had it before anybody, but I always liked Delphi, and I'm very lucky to actually get paid to work with it day in, day out. But recently, it's been even greater because, lots of bad things have happened. That's the way it is, but lots of really good things. And one of those really good things I think of late is web stencils, because the changes we put in 13 I think really push it towards being something special. It makes some of the opposing technologies like Razor and Blazor and all the other, mustache templates and things like that. Web Stencils really does compete very heavily. It's got the strong punch, and things like the allow lists and block lists and all those kind of enterprise ready features. As you saw, I heard you say some comments in the chat, which we won't repeat, but let's just say they're very Australian. Holy mackerel. And those kind of features actually really do make Web Stencils a competitive product. And the nice thing about it is the Web Stencils templates are pure HTML. You can give them to a web guy or girl, and they can look at it and you say, and here's the keywordy bits. And within 20 minutes, they understand exactly how to use it. They don't do anything different with their web design skills. They just put the keywords where they need things to happen, and it produces good quality web pages. The back end of it is Delphi and C++, which is what we're very good at, the server side of it. I can give you 50 reasons why you shouldn't be using things like Node and stuff like that in your back end, and Python and all those. Delphi and C++ much more useful. So I'm really very pleased to see the evolution of the things that we put in there. And someone was saying about I think it was Lachlan actually, because he said quite a lot of things. He was saying, oh, this is where is it? Of course, my dog's barking at the neighbours now.
No, I think it's Jeff, second from the bottom.
Yeah, well, top actually on mine. The updated web broker looks close to what RAD server should have been. And actually, all the things you saw with web broker can actually happen with RAD server as well. There are a lot of those. There are some slight differences because RAD server obviously works slightly differently, but all the things you can, the demos have actually got RAD server demos and web broker demos as well. So Web Stencils is very significant in my opinion. I love it. If you've got no use for it, then you're just like, so what? But trust me, if you've got a use for it, if there's a lot of Delphi programmers and C++ programmers are under pressure from companies who have been sold the lie that, hey, everything should be a web app. And yeah, for user interfaces, web makes a lot of sense. But for the server side of it, you want something that there's no dependencies. You put your Delphi app down, you can literally copy it off a memory stick, upgrade Windows around it from Windows 10 to 11 or Windows Server 19 or 2019 or whatever, and it will keep running. And that's the benefit of Delphi's robustness, security, and all those kind of things. But still, now really producing something of good quality with Web Stencils. Another related question, which you said we'd get back to, so I want to cover it now, and I apologize for talking too much. But FMX Linux. The reason I wanted to mention that is, first of all, for those that don't know, and I'm sure most people know by now, but what happened was that, and I've got the article up here, Eugene Kryukov, who was the author of FMX Linux, a very, very smart guy, unfortunately passed away completely unexpectedly. He was a youngish guy, relatively young, but he was youngish guy, and he died unexpectedly, and it was an absolute shock for everybody. There were literally people in the office that were just staggered. You know, we all knew him very well, and he was he lived in part of the Russian Federation, and like anything, you know, he was quite crucial to FMX Linux. He owned the IP, and when he died, the delay in us fixing, you know, getting to the point where we could have FMX Linux back into the IDE was caused by the mere fact that he passed away so suddenly. And like any country, there are rules about estate duties and legalities and proving probate and all the horrible things that happen when people die. And so it was always an agreement with Eugene's estate, specifically his wife, actually, that we would probably take over the maintenance of FMX Linux, and that does actually happen now. So, to answer the question in a long roundabout way, FMX Linux is something that we build in-house and maintain in-house. And the question that was asked was, is it actively developed? Yes, it actively is developed. And the latest version of FMX Linux was completely worked on in-house. And there is a slight visual error at the moment under Ubuntu 24 LTS, you know, one of those things. But it works. But Debian, I use it on WSL2, I use it on Ubuntu, I use it on all the rest of it. It's a great product, and we will continue to maintain it. We've actually more closely integrated it with the runtime as well, so that when you produce an FMX Linux app, it's actually much more like the other platforms, you know, Windows, Mac OS, iOS, and all the rest of it as well. So the answer there is very much so. The other question, do you want me to cover some other questions as well, or do you want to pick up?
Sure, you're on a roll, so keep going.
Yeah, okay. Well, the other question was about the AI chatbot, which Lachlan Gemmell, I have to say, I know you very well. I think I may have even spoken to you once or twice in the past, but you know, you asked some very good questions. I know you're a very engaged guy. I've seen you on things like Delphi Praxis and a few other sites. And your question was, why isn't the AI chatbot trained on the VCL source? The answer is, this is our first take of the AI chatbot, and we weren't entirely sure how to deliver and what to deliver and what would work and what wouldn't work. The other problem as well is that it does obviously exist in the cloud. And if we go and train it on our source code, there are some little issues to do with that, because we don't want to, you know, throw away the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, and give away our intellectual property. However, today it was obvious as we were doing the initial US focused launch video that everybody wants to use the chatbot. And in fact, we had a QR code which I took out of the video because we had so much traffic. It was just overwhelming us. It's obviously going to be something that people use a lot of. People were asking some very weird questions. I know I'm going to mention this because it was on Facebook. A group that's got like 14,000 people, but people were asking it, who is Ian Barker, which is not really what it's there for. However, we realized that maybe we should probably tell it who some of the people are, like Marco Cantu and things like that. It is trained on the documentation. It is trained on .wiki. It is trained on some of our videos as well, some of our video content. It has been trained on that as well. So sometimes if the answer is appropriately answered with a video, it will offer you a video as well. It's not a massive list, but there's quite a few of them. But the answer is, if you think it should be trained on the source, tell us, let us know. We give out our email address. Bother Malcolm if you want. I'd like to see Malcolm get an inrush of emails and then hate me for it. But if not, ian.barker at embarcadero.com and tell me. I answer all my emails, and people freak out when I reply back within a few minutes. True, Malcolm? Do I not reply as quickly as possible? I mean, sometimes I'm asleep if you're in Australia, but
well, I often think you don't sleep because you do reply at the weirdest times of the day.
Yeah, well, you know, my job is important to. When I joined the company, we were in a particular place where I felt that I, as a Delphi guy, I thought we could probably polish up a few things, and the company was on board with that. They're very good. They don't tell me what to do. They should sometimes, to be honest, but they don't. They let me do what I think is right, and what I think is right is that I feel like you should be able to email me and tell me what you think. And if you hate what we're doing, tell us. And if you like what we're doing, tell us as well, so that we don't stop doing that good thing. It's no good just moaning at me all the time. Tell me the things you like as well. But I thought it was important. Now, we've always, in Embarcadero's defense, we've always given out email addresses, always, so that people can get hold of Marco can too. We don't hide his email address. If you don't like something in Windows, if you don't like the AI they've put in Microsoft Edge, or who do you email? That's a genuine question. Nobody can give you that answer. There's nobody you can go to and say, I think the way you're doing this in Windows is terrible. They can give you a feedback form, and you have no idea where it goes. I actually know the person who gets those, but that's because I'm one of the chosen few to know these things. But it is not public information. Well, Embarcadero is not like that, and I know that sometimes we've seen people say, "Oh, you don't respond or whatever," but that's not true. You'll get a reply from me, and I will try and reply very quickly. But I do sleep. I know it doesn't seem like, but I do sleep, and I stop talking as well. Over to you, Malcolm.
So I was just going to talk about a couple of other things in there. One is a small thing, but it's actually kind of nice, which is all the search boxes or search functionality in each of the IDE windows. And one of the things that very recently I've discovered, is that the Control F hotkey is kind of overloaded. It's dependent on where your focus is. So if your focus is in the source code, Control F will search just like it always has. But if your focus is in the structure view, Control F will take you up to the structure view search edit box, and it's same for all the others. And especially that structure view one I really like, because all of those windows have hotkeys, so you can hotkey over to the structure view, Control F, and just start searching on impl, for example, and hit enter, and it'll take you to the implementation statement in your source code. So it's a really quick way, without reaching for the mouse, of getting to users clauses where your implementation is, that kind of stuff. It's just great.
Richard Hatherall, a good friend of mine, who does the Apicep components, he's a Mac guy, and he tricked out my Mac for me. How that because I bought a new Mac. It's not that machine behind me; it's another one over here. And he installed a load of command line stuff, and I never use it. I'm so used to using a mouse, I just click on stuff. Yeah, but it's great, isn't it? Why do we have to do a manual install the Windows SDK? Says Lachlan again. The answer is I don't know that. I know there was a problem, and I really don't know what. Do you know that?
I have a bit more information. So there have been some changes in the licensing, and maybe Gordon knows a bit more about this because it's on the C++ side. But there have been some changes around how C++ Builder interacts with the Windows SDK for C++. On the Delphi side, and Gordon, speak up about this if you can shed more light, but on the Delphi side, that message actually is a little misleading. You only need, for Delphi applications, there's only a couple of sort of corner cases where you need the Windows SDK for signing things. I think one is related to the resource
or related stuff as well.
Yeah. So for example, on the VM that I just set up, the RTM version the other day, I didn't bother installing the Windows SDK because I didn't have CBuilder on that one, and works fine. But so I think the wording on
far.
that dialogue needs a bit of tweaking. It is an essential thing now for CBuilder. And Gordon, can you shed light on why?
Yes, that's what you said about our C++ SDK issues with Microsoft. So that is why you need to specify that you want to install Windows 10 SDK. Yeah, that's basically what you said.
And you don't need all of it. There's only some parts of it as well. That I think that's another thing that people
You only need if you want to develop a Windows application in C and C++, and then you need to call the Windows SDK directly. Then you need to install it. Otherwise, if you are a Java developer, yeah, it's very you actually do not need to install Windows SDK specifically.
Yeah, Mark says he installed RAD Studio 13 without the Windows SDK pre-installed. He went to build Project 1, and the IDE pulled in the SDK. Yes, that is a behavior of the IDE. If it needs it and hasn't got it, it will actually make it install at that point.
Was that, I assume, Mark, that was for a CBuilder project? Probably.
We'll wait for him to reply.
Yeah, yeah. There was...
Ivan says about the what's the hotkey to bring you back to the source code editor? I don't know. Is the short answer. I just use the mouse all the time, to be honest. It depends as well, because you can now. People always ask about undocked. You remember the undocked version of the IDE where you could have all the windows just spread all over the place. A while ago, we had someone email us and say they would only upgrade if they could have the form designer floating. So I sent them back a screenshot with the floating form designer because you can actually open new editor windows and split windows. I don't know whether people would miss this in 12, but you can split windows horizontally, vertically. You can open multiple editor windows, and each one of those editor windows, you can click on the design tab. You can only have one form designer visible at a time, but you can have it floating. So if your workflow is to have the form designer over there, your code in front of you, and I don't know, the help or properties or what. I mean, I quite often when I'm coding intensely, I'll have some of the tool windows undocked and off out of the way. But they said they would order it if we could float the form designer. I sent him a screenshot. I haven't heard back yet. So
did you send him a quote with the screenshot?
No, I was on myself. Well, I think he said something like, "No, it's got to be undocked," and I'm like, "Dude, it's undocked. You know, do what you do." F12 says Jeff Smith. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That's apparently the shortcut for the designer. Ivan says it's a trick question. It doesn't exist yet. Oh, there you go. See, good job. I don't know everything. I mean, I always say to people, you know, when I go to Brazil, and I should be in Brazil, it's like being Taylor Swift because there's so many people over in Brazil, and they'll go, and it's weird. You walk 5 feet and they want to take your phone. So I'm like, I'm just like a guy that writes Delphi code. You know, I'm not anything special, and I want people to know that because I know I've got the Embarcadero top on and I'm on the screen a lot and I talk a lot, but I'm a coder. I get up every day and I write code, but I don't have all the answers, and nobody should have all the answers. Marco will be the first to say he doesn't have all the answers either. It's a collective knowledge, and sometimes we're helping each other out. And I think you two kind of prove the point, really.
There's a question in there about there's two questions actually about the generic constraints, and Paul's adding in a plug for the non-null constraint. So do you guys feel qualified to talk about those? I actually don't feel terribly qualified on these ones.
Okay, so the way that they work, there's the thing about constraints is it's probably best that you read the documentation about it, because it's one of those things where Ian Barker is exactly like Taylor Swift, says Lachlan. Yeah, see, yeah. I meant in terms of taking photos, and I'm like, stop it! I'm just a normal dude, but I'm as normal as anybody. So the constraints, you need to read through those because they're not obvious, and there was a lot of to and fro, people talking about null operators and things like that, and we know this is a requested feature. The ternary operator was probably the top. It was the top requested feature that we implemented. We know that people, every time we do a webinar, someone asks about null operators and nulls and null conditionals and things like that. And unfortunately, we couldn't make it this time round. The constraints are explained well in some demos in the documentation, and it's better to go through those and have a look at them. With the ternary operator, there are some rules about what happens if you have a null as one of the arguments, and also what happens if you've got a class of this and class of that and so on and so forth. And again, there's a big table of them. It's took up 2 slides, screens and things like this. Ian, your pronunciation of Lachlan's name is doing my head in. Pretend you're a Scotsman and simply say Lachlan. 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 Okay. Well. Okay, Jose. That'll make him mad. Yeah.
The other set of components that I'm also particularly interested in are I can't remember what they're called now, but the AI components for integrating AI into your
Core is the name.
Sorry, what is it? Smart Core.
Smart Core.
Okay.
I know that name. Yeah, we undenied over the name, but Smart Core made sense. It basically was at one point, to give you an idea of how they work, we did initially want to call them FireDAC AI or AI FireDAC or FireDAC for AI, and that kind of it sums up how it works. So if you think about FireDAC, you've got a FireDAC connection, and then you've got FireDAC queries and all the rest of it, and then you specialize that connection for a particular provider. So it might be MySQL, or it might be SQL Server, or Oracle, or something like that. And they're laughing about the pronunciation now. And the Smart Core does the same thing, and it is fundamentally the same thing. And I know, Malcolm, you were actually involved in a little bit of that as well, because you told me behind the scenes there's a little bit of conversation going on about that. And I think it's a great idea, because the idea is to provide the functionality in almost an abstract way. So it abstracts you away from, OpenAI does things this way, and Llama does it that way, and then DeepSeek or whatever the next version is does it a different way. And so the Smart Core abstracts that away. We were hoping we'd have them ready for launch day, and they very nearly are, but they're not. And so they will be delivered by Get-It, the Get-It package manager. You will just get notified. Make sure, don't worry, we'll make everybody know that they're available. And we've got some good demos of it as well, but it will give you some really profound functionality in your applications, like being able to generate, an icon for your app with AI on the fly, or actually returning structured data. So you could say to the AI, give me all the top 10 cities in Australia with the most single women, for example, or something random like that, and it would come back with a table returned from the AI. I'm sure it would say that it can't reply like that, but let's say what's the top 10 beverages on sale in the Australian South, for example, or something like that.
Well, I think
there'll all be beer, of course, but
well, I'm not sure I want to talk about what sort of applications you're writing, Ian, if that was the first thing that came to mind. But
I'm just a normal coder, right?
But I think
yes,
what's really
data is important. It's one of those things that's difficult to do otherwise, and that's what this helps.
I mean, at its core, it's to be clear, because I've had a few people ask me if it relies on FireDAC, and it doesn't. It's conceptually the same idea as FireDAC or BDE or any of those, where like you've got your queries and everything, and you can change the underlying driver to talk to a different database, but you don't have to change the rest of your app. It's kind of the same idea, but for AI.
Yeah.
But apart from querying about top 10 single people, you can also pass up. We've done it with customers where you're passing up details about the application and getting AI to act on that information, and then getting the results back in a structured format to use in the code. So it's really, and then the customers of your application can decide if they want to use OpenAI or Olama locally or whatever it is. So I think it's really got the potential, if you're on board with AI, it's got the potential to do the same thing that Delphi 1 did back in the day for databases in your application now for different LLMs. So yeah, really cool. We'll definitely be doing some more demo webinars on that.
Yeah, that's a very good illustration of a use case. And I'm joking around about single people, but all I'm saying is that, I mean, it could be absolutely anything. The point is it's structured data that comes out of an AI. And one of the things that AI is very good at is summarizing stuff and producing generative AI, things like images and even text and answers to code and stuff like that. And I think, I did a whole week of AI coding camp. And I said several times, I'm an AI optimistic skeptic because I'm optimistic for the future. I believe that we have hit a point where this is something amazing is happening in technology, really, truly amazing. But I'm skeptical of 99% of the things that people show me. Because the problem is when you have got a $6 billion investment in something, there are 6 billion reasons why you need it to work even when it doesn't. And that's dangerous. And Embarcadero does not have a horse in that race in terms of investing in some massively expensive AI infrastructure. So when we give you an AI solution, it's because we believe it's useful to you and it works in a way that is going to be something that you find useful and does not conflict with your own needs and risk analysis, how you do things.
Yeah. I mean, we're still in that period where reality doesn't always meet the promise. The last few years we've had,
like when the first mobile phones came out, they were that big, they lasted 2 minutes.
The last few years we've had so many customers come to us and say, we've got to add AI to our application. And we go, okay, what does that mean? And they fall into three groups. Number one, they don't know, but they just know they need to add AI. Number two, they think it means a chat window. Or the smallest group actually know what they want. But with a number of them, we've sort of sat down and gone, okay, well, what could it mean? And gone through what their business, what their pain points are and what their applications do. And in most cases, you can actually find business value to be had. It's very often not the flashy chatbot image generation stuff that maybe has caught the media's attention, but there's some business value there. So I think, as always, smart developers still need to sit down with their customers and work through what it actually means.
Internally in the company, and it was probably 2 years ago now, there was a question that went around saying, can you come up with some ideas of things you think would be good with AI and features you think? And most people, I understand, gave a couple of examples, and I gave a 4-page document because I sat there and allowed myself to rethink the 80s and the 90s and all the other events that I lived through. I've been a developer for 40 years, so I've been through a few of these key moments, like the internet coming up and PC being invented even. And I believe that we are only, certainly with RAD Studio, we're only scratching the surface of what we could do. I think there's if you go into Get It and look for AI, you'll find every single AI provider is provided for. There's a guy called Maxi Donkey. His name is actually Pascal, funny enough, his real name, but his handle is Maxi Donkey, who says he's not a Delphi guy, but has actually produced, I don't know how many Delphi add-ons for AI in RAD Studio. And you can find an AI add-on in Get It for free that does absolutely anything you could want. Plus, you've obviously got Smart Code Insight, and you've also now got the Smart Core AI components coming on as well. So there's we are not sitting back and going, oh, nobody's going to care about AI. No, we're absolutely on fire for it. My bosses, Idea people, very much so believe that it is something that is not only cannot be ignored, it needs to be embraced, but embraced carefully and fully, but accurately, without screwing everything up, if you see what I mean. So
yeah. So I think we're pushing our luck with keeping people on the webinar at this point. But I do want to drag Gordon into this because you've been suspiciously quiet over there, mate. So just want to know what's your favorite thing in the 13 release?
Yes, I'm very glad that you asked me this question, because if you had asked me, I would speak for myself, and I assume most of the audiences are Delphi guy. Please bear with my English, but I just want to mention that actually CBuilder 13 is a very important version for both CBuilder and for Delphi. Why? Let me explain. Because if you look at the CBuilder 13, it brings the whole C++ toolchain to Clam 20. So that means that if you use CBuilder, the CBuilder compiler will run much faster and compile your program much faster, and the generated application will run much faster. Why? Because if you look at the generated assembly level, the new modern C++ compiler generates very good optimized code. And it means a lot also to Delphi developer. Why? Because right now, the current Delphi compiler also begin to move to the latest LLVM backend. Okay, so CBuilder 13 laid the foundation for us to modernize our compiling technology. So that means in a very near time in the future, okay, we will also bring the latest LLVM technology to the Delphi compiler. And if you are a Delphi guy, you should know that Pascal is a strong type language. And if you look at the C++23 new language features, you will see that C++23 try to make C++ developer to specify the real meaning of your C++ code. In that case, you will generate much better optimization code. But Delphi is a strong type language. The language already lets you write very specific code. So that means when we bring the LLVM compiling technology to the Delphi side, our Delphi compiler will run much faster, and the code generated by our Delphi compiler will make your application run much faster, because the whole optimization is the next level. So so that's why in Greater China, we have a lot of customers shows very high interest in C++23 features. Okay, and we will see the good sides in the future from the Delphi.
It brings C++ Builder into the modern world for the compiler, because we're the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
And actually, the performance and capabilities, we beat other major compilers as well because of the implementation we've got.
Yes.
So it is something really significant, and it's not something we're going to be quiet about, because as you pointed out, C++23. It's not fully compatible. There are some issues with some bits of it, but actually, it's the CLang 20 compiler and all the other toolchain that goes with it, LLDB and all the rest of it. it's the real thing. It's not some kind of compromised, oh, it's based on old technology. No, it's the very latest you can get, and it's great. I can program in C++, but I'm not a C++ guy. So, you describe the benefits much better, and I forget sometimes as well.
Well, guys, we've been on here for an hour and 45 minutes. I don't mind. I'm having a good time, but I did tell people at the beginning that we'd have them out in time for lunch. Apologies to the New Zealand guys, that's long gone. But we should probably wrap it up. So any last words from either of you before we wrap this?
I think I've said enough. Gordon should get another 5 minutes.
While we're talking, I might just put up a couple of things because this time of year we get the same set of questions. Sorry, not this time of year, but this time of release cycle, we get the same set of questions. So if you have forgotten what your serial number is, or you've forgotten how do we get the installer and all that sort of stuff, since the last time a release happened, we've got a write-up there about, and apologies, Ian, we're covering up your face. We've got a write-up there on how to grab the installer, how to find your serial, all that sort of stuff. So, go for it there if you need a refresher. If you're wondering what's in which version of the product, what's in Pro, what's in Enterprise, all that sort of stuff, the feature matrix has been updated, so that one's there. You can go and look through and see if your bit that you got really excited about is in the edition you want. Sorry, Lachlan's comment just distracted me there for a second. And then if you didn't catch everything during this, then I think it's Marco's post about what's new with links to various demos and whatever else is up there, so you can
actually the replay video with questions and answers from earlier today. If you open up the IDE and look on the welcome page, it's in the learn section there, so Perfect. They can watch that again if they want to catch it, and it's on YouTube anyway, of course. So
yeah, yep. And then last of all, if you didn't get and if none of those solved your problem, and you still want to talk to someone, as always, come and get in contact with us. You can website will show you a bunch of different ways to do it, but as Ian was talking about before, there's also my email address if you just want to get in contact directly.
Complaints to him, compliments to me.
Well, I think as Embarcadero's own Taylor Swift, I think you should carry the load of some of the complaints too.
Yeah. Peter's gonna hate. See, my ex-wife is a Swiftie, so I know the song that will work in that scenario. So yeah, I saw her live actually in Dallas. She was very good. But there you go.
So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Ian, you've probably been up for about 24 hours at this stage, so head off and have a drink.
The week, I've told you that many times. Look, we must do this again. I'm happy to I want to give out a little bit more kind of love to the APAC region, because the trouble is, we're very Texas centric. Yeah, my ADUG mug is actually on the shelf behind me. See that panda bear there? That's an ADUG mug. Yeah. The Nexus DB guys, not that one. It's a similar one. But, I don't know. Actually, maybe it is the same. But he brought it all the way over to Amsterdam. I think was where he got it. But I do. Joking apart, I just want to make it clear as well that I do for the people that see the replay of this and things like that. I know we quite often do things and it focuses on the US time zones, and that's just because we have to pick a time zone for everyone, because we're all over the world. Most of the people work remotely. Marco is based in Italy, and Nuno and many of the others are based in Portugal, and I'm based in Dallas. But we do want to make sure that we try and give you the opportunity to chat with us live. and I represent the company. So, Malcolm, we should do more of these. You and I get on very well. Gordon, I'm in with meetings with him every 2 weeks. I think we bump into each other, but we come across each other in all sorts of meetings and stuff. And by the way, Interbase 15 is on the way as well, which is another thing we need to talk about in the future as well. That's a big release coming up in a few weeks, I think. I'm not sure when the exact date is planned for, but coming up soon, and you'll hear a lot about that. Some very cool things happening with that. So.
Cool. All right. Yes, we'll take you up on that. We'll get you back on to do stuff.
Actually, and sleep.
But thank you, guys. Thank you, Gordon. Always a pleasure to chat with you again. And obviously, we should thank the attendees too. They're starting to drop off. I guess some of them are getting hungry. But thank you guys for joining. I'll also post this replay probably later this afternoon and send out a link to everybody. But otherwise, look forward to either hearing from you or seeing you on the next one of these that we do.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.